Before this message ends, something inside you is going to shift, because this is not random and this is not coincidence and this is not just another motivational sentence scrolling past your screen. This is a divine interruption meant specifically for you at this exact moment in your life, because God is saying you are closer than you think to your breakthrough. And the reason you feel tired lately, the reason things feel delayed lately, the reason doors seem quiet lately, the reason people started acting different lately is not because you are being forgotten, but because you are being positioned. And there is a difference between being delayed and being prepared. And right now heaven is preparing something behind the scenes that your eyes cannot see yet, but your spirit has already started sensing, which is why you feel restless, which is why you feel emotional, which is why you keep wondering why everything feels like it is about to change even though nothing around you looks different yet. Because God is whispering to your heart that you are standing closer to your breakthrough than any moment before in your life. And what makes this moment powerful is that most people quit exactly here, most people stop exactly here, most people lose faith exactly here, but you did not stop, you did not walk away, you did not give up. And because you stayed when quitting felt easier, heaven has already marked your name for acceleration. And what you thought was rejection was actually redirection. What you thought was silence was actually protection. What you thought was loss was actually positioning, because sometimes God removes what is comfortable so He can release what is destined. And you were never meant to stay where you were, you were never meant to shrink where you were never meant to settle where you were. And that discomfort you feel right now is not punishment, it is preparation, because breakthrough always begins with pressure before elevation always begins with separation, and before transformation always begins with confusion. And what you are feeling right now is the exact environment where miracles are born, because God does not move when everything is predictable. God moves when everything feels uncertain, and what looks like chaos around you is actually divine rearrangement happening for you. And there are people who walked away from your life recently, not because you failed, but because they could not go where you are going. And there were opportunities that disappeared recently, not because you were unlucky, but because they were distractions disguised as blessings. And there were moments when you felt alone recently, not because God abandoned you, but because He was removing noise so you could finally hear His direction clearly. And right now something is aligning that you cannot see yet, but soon you will recognize why every delay was necessary, why every disappointment had purpose, why every closed door had protection hidden inside it. Because your breakthrough is not coming from the place you expected, it is coming from the place God prepared. And the reason this season felt heavier than usual is because the blessing attached to this season is bigger than usual. And when the blessing is greater, the preparation becomes deeper. And when the calling is higher, the process becomes longer. And when the purpose is stronger, the resistance becomes louder. And the enemy always attacks hardest when your breakthrough is closest, which explains why recently you felt more doubt than before, more pressure than before, more confusion than before, because something powerful is closer than you realize. And heaven always sends confirmation before manifestation. And this message right now is confirmation that something is shifting for you, something is unlocking for you, something is about to move in your favor faster than you expected. And what looked impossible last month will soon look undeniable, and what looked delayed last season will soon look perfectly timed. And what looked like rejection last year will soon look like protection. You will thank God for later, because there are doors preparing to open that no human effort could create. There are connections preparing to appear that no strategy could arrange. There are opportunities preparing to arrive that no plan could predict, because your breakthrough is not coming from your strength alone, it is coming from divine timing. And divine timing never arrives early, but it never arrives late either. It arrives exactly when your Heart is strong enough to handle what your future requires, and right now your heart is stronger than it used to be. Your patience is deeper than it used to be. Your faith is quieter but stronger than it used to be, and even though you questioned yourself sometimes, you still kept believing. Even though you felt discouraged sometimes, you still kept moving. Even though you felt invisible sometimes, you still kept trusting, and that persistence changed everything in the spiritual realm, because heaven responds to persistence. Heaven responds to faith that refuses to quit. Heaven responds to hearts that stay loyal even when answers stay silent. And because you stayed faithful in a silent season, you are about to step into a visible reward season. And the reason you survived what you survived is because your story is not finished yet, your calling is not finished yet, your purpose is not finished yet, and God never brings someone this far just to leave them right before the miracle arrives. He brings them this far so they can witness what persistence creates, what obedience releases, what patience unlocks. And right now something is being released toward you that will restore your confidence, restore your direction, restore your expectation, because breakthrough does not only change your circumstances, it changes your perspective. And soon you will realize that the waiting season was not wasted time, it was building strength inside you that success alone could never build. And the quiet season was not empty space, it was sacred preparation that noise could never allow. And the lonely season was not abandonment, it was alignment that distractions could never support. And when your breakthrough arrives, you will finally understand why God allowed certain things to fall apart, because they were blocking what He was preparing to build. And you are not as far away as your fear suggests, you are not as delayed as your doubt suggests, you are not as forgotten as your situation suggests. You are closer than you think, closer than yesterday, closer than last month, closer than last year, because every prayer you whispered, every tear you hid, every step you took when nobody noticed moved you forward more than you realized. And even now things are shifting in ways you cannot measure yet, and soon something unexpected will confirm what your spirit already suspected, that God has been working the entire time even when nothing seemed to move. And when that moment arrives, you will remember this message, you will remember this feeling, you will remember this reminder that breakthrough always begins quietly before it becomes visible, and what starts silently in the spiritual world always arrives powerfully in the physical world. And your moment is approaching faster than your fear predicted, faster than your doubt assumed, faster than your timeline expected, because heaven's calendar is different from human calendars, and what feels late to you is perfectly placed to God, and what feels slow to you is actually strategic to God. And what feels uncertain to you is already decided in heaven. And right now you are standing at the edge of something that will change your confidence, change your direction, change your story, because when God says you are closer than you think, it means doors are already unlocking, it means answers are already moving, it means restoration is already traveling toward you, and the only thing left is for you to keep believing one step longer, keep trusting one moment longer, keep standing one season longer, because the miracle you prayed for is closer than you ever imagined. And this time when it arrives, it will not leave you questioning, it will leave you praising, because you will finally see that every delay had direction, every silence had strategy, every ending had purpose, and every tear had meaning. And the breakthrough you are about to receive will not just change one area of your life, it will confirm that God never stopped working for you even when everything around you looked still. And this is the moment where faith becomes reality, and waiting becomes testimony, and silence becomes celebration, and your breakthrough becomes visible to everyone who once doubted what God was preparing inside you. And what many people do not understand is that breakthrough moments rarely arrive when life feels comfortable. They arrive when life feels uncertain, confusing, and stretched beyond what you thought you could handle, because God does His deepest preparation in seasons where nothing seems to make sense. And right now, even though you cannot see everything clearly, there is movement happening around you that is too precise to be accidental, too intentional to be random, and too powerful to be delayed any longer, because the same God who carried you through seasons you thought you would never survive is now positioning you for a season you once thought you would never reach. And there were nights when you questioned whether your prayers were even being heard. There were mornings when motivation felt heavy and hope felt distant. There were moments when you smiled in front of people while silently fighting battles nobody knew about. But even in those hidden moments, heaven was recording your endurance. Heaven was strengthening your spirit. Heaven was preparing your path, because the breakthrough that is coming toward you is not ordinary, it is not temporary, it is not small, it is something that will shift your confidence in a way that makes you walk differently, speak differently, believe differently, and live differently. Because when God moves in your life at this level, He does not just change what is around you, He changes what is inside you. And the reason you have been feeling a quiet expectation lately, even when circumstances did not improve yet, is because your spirit can recognize movement before your eyes can see evidence. And that inner knowing you feel is not imagination, it is confirmation that something is already aligning in your favor. And even the delays that frustrated you were secretly protecting you from arriving too early to a place that required a stronger version of you. And sometimes the greatest act of divine love is not opening the door immediately, but strengthening the person who will eventually walk through that door. And you are stronger now than you were before, wiser now than you were before, calmer now than you were before. And this new strength inside you is not accidental, it is preparation for the responsibility attached to your next blessing. Because the breakthrough ahead of you is not just about receiving something new, it is about becoming someone new, someone who trusts deeper, someone who stands firmer, someone who believes without needing constant reassurance. And there were people who misunderstood your silence recently, not realizing you were growing. There were people who underestimated your patience recently, not realizing you were being trained. There were people who doubted your future recently, not realizing heaven had already written a different outcome for your life. And soon those same moments that looked ordinary to others will become evidence of how God was quietly rewriting your story behind the scenes. Because when breakthrough begins to approach, it often brings separation before it brings elevation, it often brings stillness before it brings acceleration, and it often brings uncertainty before it brings clarity. And the reason this season felt different from the previous ones is because you are not repeating your past anymore, you are stepping into something prepared specifically for your purpose. And there are blessings traveling toward you right now that are not delayed. They are scheduled. There are answers forming around you right now that are not missing, they are maturing. There are opportunities approaching you right now that are not random, they are intentional. Because God never prepares a breakthrough without first preparing the person who will receive it. And you are being prepared in ways that you will only fully understand after the moment arrives. And when that moment appears, suddenly what once felt confusing will begin to feel meaningful, what once felt painful will begin to feel necessary, what once felt slow will begin to feel perfectly timed. And you will realize that even when nothing looked like progress, something powerful was still moving forward in your life. And the strength you built during this quiet season will become the foundation that supports the success of your next season. Because blessings without preparation create pressure, but blessings with preparation create stability. And God is not just interested in giving you something quickly, He is interested in giving you something that lasts, something That grows something that stays, and this is why your waiting season had purpose even when it felt uncomfortable, because the version of you that is stepping into this breakthrough is not the same version that started the journey, and growth like that never happens by accident. It happens through persistence, it happens through faith, it happens through continuing to trust even when visible evidence has not appeared yet, and your decision to keep believing even during uncertainty changed the direction of your future more than you realize, because faith has a way of opening doors before you even reach them. Faith has a way of preparing answers before you even ask new questions. Faith has a way of creating movement before you even notice change, and right now something is being positioned in your favor that will soon remove the doubts that tried to convince you nothing was happening, because something has been happening the entire time, even during the silence, even during the waiting, even during the confusion. And when the moment of breakthrough finally becomes visible, you will understand why God asked you to stay patient, why God asked you to stay strong, why God asked you to stay faithful, because what is coming next is not just another step forward, it is a shift into a new level of confidence, a new level of direction, a new level of purpose, where you will finally see that every step you took when nobody noticed still mattered. Every prayer you whispered when nobody heard still counted, and every moment you stayed faithful when nobody understood still changed your future in ways that are about to become visible very soon. And when that visibility arrives, it will not just encourage you, it will remind everyone around you that God never forgets those who keep walking forward even when the path is unclear. And this next season of your life will carry evidence that your waiting was not wasted, your faith was not misplaced, and your patience was not ignored, because you truly are closer than you think, closer than fear wants you to believe, closer than doubt tried to convince you, and closer than any previous season you have ever walked through before. There is something happening right now behind the scenes of your life that you cannot fully see yet, but heaven has already shifted the atmosphere around your situation, and the reason you suddenly feel different even when nothing around you has changed yet is because God has already started moving pieces into position that your natural eyes cannot recognize, but your spirit is beginning to sense, and that quiet feeling inside you that says something is about to change is not your imagination, it is confirmation that your breakthrough is already closer than you think, and the delays you thought were setbacks were actually divine timing, adjustments designed to protect what God is preparing to release into your life, because some blessings cannot arrive early without being damaged by the wrong environment, and some doors cannot open until the wrong people step aside, and some opportunities cannot appear until your strength matches your calling, and God has been working on all three at the same time. Even when you thought nothing was happening at all, there were moments when you questioned whether your prayers were even reaching heaven, and there were nights when silence felt heavier than faith, and there were days when you kept moving forward even though your heart felt tired from waiting and wondering why everything seemed to pause right when you were expecting progress. But what you did not realize was that heaven was never silent, it was strategic, and God was never delaying your blessing, he was protecting its arrival so that when it finally reached your life it would stay and not disappear the way temporary opportunities sometimes do when they arrive before their appointed season. And the truth is, many people walk away right before their breakthrough because the pressure becomes too heavy and the waiting becomes too confusing, but you stayed, and that decision alone has positioned you closer to your miracle than you have ever been before. Something powerful begins to happen when a person chooses faith even while standing inside uncertainty, because faith sends a signal to heaven that you are ready for what is next even before you can see it clearly, and right now heaven is responding to that signal in ways you will soon recognize, because doors that once stayed closed are preparing to open unexpectedly, and conversations that never happened before are about to begin, and opportunities that once ignored your presence are getting ready to recognize your value. Because God is shifting the environment around your destiny so that what belongs to you can finally locate you without confusion and without resistance and without delay. There are people who thought your story had already reached its highest point, and there are people who assumed your season of progress had already passed, and there are people who quietly believed your silence meant your journey had stopped moving forward. But what they could not see was that God does His deepest work in hidden seasons where preparation happens privately so promotion can happen publicly. And right now you are standing inside one of the final preparation moments before the evidence of your breakthrough becomes visible to everyone who once doubted what God was doing in your life. Sometimes the reason progress feels invisible is because God is strengthening foundations that must hold the weight of what He is about to release, and strong foundations are not built quickly, they are built carefully and intentionally and quietly, so that when the blessing arrives it does not collapse under pressure. And that is exactly what has been happening in your life. Even when you thought everything had slowed down, God was reinforcing your strength, increasing your wisdom, protecting your direction, and removing hidden obstacles that would have interfered with your next season if they had remained in place any longer. You are closer than you think, not because circumstances suddenly changed, but because heaven has already approved what your future is about to receive. And approval always comes before arrival, even when arrival takes longer than expected. And the moment heaven releases approval, everything on earth begins moving into alignment, whether people recognize it immediately or not. And right now alignment is already happening around you in ways that will soon become impossible to ignore, because God never prepares a breakthrough without also preparing the path that leads to it, and He never prepares a path without also preparing the person who will walk through it successfully. There is a reason your strength did not disappear during the hardest moments of your waiting season, and there is a reason your hope continued speaking even when your situation stayed quiet, and there is a reason your spirit refused to surrender even when everything looked uncertain. And that reason is because God placed something inside you that could not be stopped by delay, confusion, silence, or opposition, and that same strength is now guiding you directly toward the moment when everything begins making sense in a way you never expected but always hoped for. Your breakthrough is not approaching slowly the way it sometimes feels from your perspective. It is approaching strategically, the way heaven always moves when something important is about to enter your life, because God does not rush miracles, He prepares them, and preparation always creates a season where progress feels invisible before results become undeniable. And many people misunderstand that season, but you remained faithful inside it, and that faithfulness is exactly what positioned you where you are right now, standing closer to your answered prayer than you have ever been before in your entire journey. And what is about to happen next in your life will not look like coincidence to anyone who understands how God moves, because when heaven decides it is time for your breakthrough, nothing can delay it, nothing can confuse it, and nothing can stop it from reaching exactly where you are. There are moments in your life when everything feels silent, when doors that you expected to open remain closed, when people you trusted suddenly step back, and when progress seems slower than your prayers. But what you cannot see right now is that heaven is not ignoring you, heaven is positioning you. Because breakthrough does not arrive randomly, and it never comes accidentally. It arrives after preparation, after strengthening, after hidden battles that nobody else sees except God, and right. Now, even though you may feel tired and uncertain and even frustrated with how long this season has lasted, there is something powerful happening behind the scenes that is aligning your life in ways you never imagined possible, because sometimes the reason your breakthrough feels delayed is not because it is far away but because it is bigger than what you originally asked for. And God is making sure that when it arrives it will not just bless one area of your life but multiple areas at the same time, so that what once looked like disappointment will suddenly make sense, and what once looked like rejection will suddenly reveal itself as protection, and what once looked like silence will suddenly reveal itself as strategy. And this is the moment where many people give up because they mistake preparation for absence, they mistake waiting for denial, and they mistake delay for defeat. But you are not in defeat right now. You are standing in the middle of divine preparation, and preparation always feels uncomfortable because it stretches you beyond what you thought you could handle, and it forces you to trust even when there are no visible signs yet. But that stretching is not punishment, that stretching is promotion, because God never increases your territory without first increasing your capacity to carry what He is about to place into your hands. And the reason your heart has been feeling restless lately is because something inside you already senses that change is near, even if your eyes cannot fully see it yet. And that inner stirring you feel is not anxiety, it is alignment. It is heaven whispering to your spirit that you are not stuck where you are, and you are not forgotten in this moment, and you are not overlooked in this season. You are being prepared for a shift that will change the direction of your life in ways that people around you will not even understand at first. Because when breakthrough comes, it rarely arrives quietly, and it rarely arrives small. It arrives with confirmation after confirmation after confirmation that God was working all along, even when everything looked still. And right now you may be questioning why certain opportunities disappeared, and why certain relationships changed, and why certain plans stopped moving forward the way you expected them to. But later you will look back and realize that those changes were not losses, they were adjustments, they were corrections, they were divine interruptions designed to move you closer to the place where your blessing could actually find you instead of passing you by. And what makes this season difficult is that preparation often happens in private while breakthrough happens in public, which means people will celebrate the result without ever understanding the process you had to walk through to get there. But heaven saw every tear you cried in silence. Heaven saw every moment you almost gave up but kept believing anyway. Heaven saw every prayer you whispered when nobody else was listening. And those moments are not wasted because they are becoming the foundation for what is about to happen next in your life. And you need to understand that breakthrough does not always begin with something appearing in front of you. Sometimes breakthrough begins with something leaving your life that was never meant to stay. Sometimes breakthrough begins with clarity replacing confusion. Sometimes breakthrough begins with strength replacing fear. And sometimes breakthrough begins with God removing the very obstacles that were quietly blocking your path without you even realizing it. And the fact that certain things are shifting around you right now is not a coincidence but a confirmation that movement has already started in the spiritual realm, even if the physical evidence has not fully appeared yet. And when heaven begins to move, nothing can stop what God has already decided to release into your life at the right time. So instead of seeing this season as empty, you must Begin to see it as active preparation, because what feels slow right now is actually strategic timing, and what feels uncertain right now is actually careful positioning, and what feels hidden right now is actually protected growth that is happening beneath the surface. And just like seeds grow underground before anyone can see them, your breakthrough is forming in places your eyes cannot reach yet, but your faith can already sense. And that is why you must keep walking forward even when the path feels unclear, because clarity often arrives after obedience, not before it. And the step you take today in faith is already moving you closer to the moment where everything begins to change at once, and the waiting you endured finally turns into witnessing, and the patience you practiced finally turns into progress, and the silence you experienced finally turns into answers that remind you God never stopped working for you even for a second. Listen carefully, because what I am about to say right now is not ordinary motivation, but a divine reminder meant specifically for the season you are standing in today, because the truth is that many people walk away right before their breakthrough arrives, not because God forgot them, but because they misunderstood the silence. And if you have stayed this long, if you are still believing after the disappointments, after the delays, after the doors that closed without explanation, then this is your confirmation that heaven has been watching your patience, and something powerful is already shifting behind the scenes for you, even if your eyes cannot see it yet. Folded hand sparkles, because there are moments when God intentionally slows your progress, not to punish you but to prepare you. Not to weaken you but to strengthen your spirit, so that when the blessing finally arrives it will not destroy you but elevate you into the person you were always meant to become. And right now what feels like waiting is actually alignment happening quietly in places you cannot reach with your own effort, because God is moving people, adjusting timing, removing hidden resistance, and positioning opportunities that match your destiny instead of your desperation. And that is why things that once worked for you suddenly stopped working. That is why certain conversations faded, certain plans collapsed, and certain expectations disappeared, because what is coming next cannot fit inside the life you were trying to hold on to before. And the reason your spirit keeps feeling restless lately is because something inside you already knows change is close, even though your situation has not fully caught up yet. And this is the season where your faith must become louder than your fear, because fear always speaks first but faith speaks last, and the final voice is always the one that shapes your future. So do not measure your progress by what people around you are achieving, because comparison will always try to convince you that you are late, when in reality you are simply being prepared differently. And the truth is that some people receive quickly because their assignment is small, but some people must wait longer because their purpose carries weight, influence, and impact far beyond what they can currently imagine. And if God trusted you with a waiting season, it is because He also trusted you with a breakthrough season that will surprise even the people who stopped believing in your journey. And what you are walking through right now is not rejection but redirection, not delay but development, not silence but strategy. Because God does His deepest work in the hidden places where nobody claps for you and nobody notices your obedience except Him. And those quiet moments when you kept believing even after nothing changed were not wasted moments, but seeds being planted into a future that is about to respond to your persistence in ways you never expected. And very soon you will look back at this exact season and realize that what you thought was a struggle was actually protection, what you thought was confusion was actually positioning, and what you thought was emptiness was actually space being created for something greater than what you originally asked for. Because when God prepares a breakthrough, He does not just change your circumstances, He changes your capacity so that you can carry what you prayed for without losing yourself in the process, and this is why you must stay steady right now, stay focused right now, stay hopeful right now, because the moment you are standing in is closer to transformation than it looks, and heaven has not forgotten your prayers, your tears, your effort, or your faith, and if you keep moving forward with trust even when clarity is missing, you will soon step into a moment where everything begins to make sense at once, and you will realize that your breakthrough was never late. It was perfectly timed just for you. Fire folded hand sparkles. And right now, before anything changes on the outside, before the doors open, before the call comes, before the opportunity appears, God wants you to understand something powerful that most people miss in this exact moment of waiting, because the silence you are standing inside is not empty, it is loaded with preparation, it is filled with alignment. It is carrying unseen movement that your eyes cannot detect yet your spirit can already feel, and that quiet restlessness inside you is not confusion, it is confirmation that heaven has already started shifting things in your favor, even though the evidence has not reached your hands yet, because when God begins moving you toward breakthrough, He does not always announce it with noise. Sometimes He begins with separation, sometimes He begins with delay, sometimes He begins with discomfort, and sometimes He begins by removing the very things you thought you needed so that you can finally receive what you were actually created for, and that is why this season has felt different from all the others you have walked through before, because this time you are not just surviving a storm, you are being positioned for transformation. You are not just enduring another challenge, you are stepping into a divine transition that is quietly rewriting your future even while everything around you looks ordinary. And the reason the enemy tried so hard to distract you, discourage you, and exhaust you recently is because he could sense what was coming before you could see it. He recognized the shift before you understood the assignment. He felt the breakthrough approaching before you recognized the signs, and that pressure you experienced was never meant to destroy you, it was meant to prepare you, because God never allows pressure without purpose, and He never allows waiting without movement happening behind the scenes. And right now there are conversations happening in places you cannot enter. There are decisions being influenced in rooms you cannot see. There are connections forming that you did not arrange, but God Himself is arranging for you. And while you were wondering if things were stuck, heaven was actually accelerating your path forward step by step in ways that will soon become undeniable to you. And this is why your spirit keeps telling you not to give up even when logic says slow down. This is why your heart keeps pushing you forward even when circumstances look unchanged, because something inside you recognizes what your eyes cannot confirm yet, that your breakthrough is not far away, it is closer than it has ever been before in your entire life, and the very moment you almost stopped believing was the exact moment God was finishing something on your behalf that you could never finish alone. So stay steady right now, stay faithful right now. Stay expectant right now, because what is forming in this hidden season is not temporary help but permanent change, not a small adjustment but a major redirection, not just relief but elevation. And very soon you are going to look back at this quiet season and realize it was the turning point where everything began shifting in your favor, even though at the time it looked like nothing was happening at all. And that is why God is asking you to hold your faith a little longer, trust His timing a little deeper, and keep walking forward with confidence, because what is coming toward you is already carrying your name on it, and no delay, no opposition, and no misunderstanding can cancel what God has already decided to release into your life. Listen carefully, because this is not a coincidence that you are hearing this message right now. There is something powerful happening behind the scenes of your life that you cannot yet see, but heaven has already approved your next step. And even though the silence around you has been confusing and the waiting has felt longer than you expected, God wants you to understand that this season was never meant to break you. It was designed to position you, because sometimes the greatest shifts in your destiny happen when nothing around you appears to be moving and you start questioning whether your prayers were heard, whether your efforts mattered, whether your faith was enough. But what you did not realize is that every tear you cried in private became a seed planted in spiritual soil, and now those seeds are beginning to grow in ways that will soon become visible in your reality. And the reason the pressure increased recently is because your life is stepping into a moment that your past version of yourself could not have handled. So God had to strengthen your heart before releasing what your spirit has been asking for. And even the people who walked away from you without explanation were not losses but divine removals, because they could not walk into the next chapter that is opening for you right now. And you may still feel moments of doubt when you wonder why things did not happen sooner, or why doors closed just when you thought they were about to open. But what you could not see was that those closed doors were protecting you from paths that looked right but would have delayed your purpose. And now you are standing closer than ever to a breakthrough that will make the confusion of your past suddenly make sense. Because God never wastes pain, and He never allows faithful waiting to go unrewarded. And the strength you built during the quiet seasons is the exact strength you will need when the opportunities begin arriving faster than you expected. And this is why your spirit kept telling you not to quit even when everything around you suggested giving up would be easier. Because deep inside you there was a knowing that your story was not finished yet, and that inner voice was not your imagination but divine direction guiding you step by step even when you could not see the full path ahead. And right now something is shifting in your favor that you prayed about months ago and almost forgot about because it seemed delayed for too long, but heaven did not forget, and your destiny was never canceled. It was only being prepared at the right time so that when it arrives it stays permanently instead of temporarily. And the patience you showed when nobody was watching created a foundation strong enough to support the blessing that is coming toward you. And the reason you felt different from others recently is because your spirit was being separated from environments that could not carry your future, and sometimes separation feels lonely before it feels purposeful, but soon you will understand why certain conversations ended and why certain relationships changed and why certain opportunities disappeared without warning, because God was clearing space for something that matches who you are becoming instead of who you used to be. And even now, while you are listening to this message, something inside your heart is beginning to feel calm again, because your spirit recognizes truth before your mind fully understands it, and that calm feeling is confirmation that you are not walking alone in this season, even if it sometimes feels that way. And the next step in your journey will require courage, but you already have that courage inside you, because everything you survived until this moment proved that you were stronger than the challenges that tried to stop you. And very soon you will notice small signs appearing around you that show movement is happening again in areas where things once felt stuck. And those signs will remind you that God has been working quietly on your behalf the entire time, even when nothing looked different on the outside. and the breakthrough you are approaching will not only change your situation but it will also change the way you see yourself, because you will finally realize that the strength you carried through the waiting season was evidence that you were chosen for something greater than you imagined. And when that realization becomes clear, your confidence will rise in a way that no disappointment from your past can ever take away again. So keep moving forward with faith even if the steps feel small right now, because every step you take in trust is bringing you closer to the moment when everything begins to make sense and the story you once thought was delayed will suddenly reveal that it was being perfectly timed all along. Listen carefully, because this moment right now is not ordinary, and it is not random that you are still watching, still waiting, still hoping, because God is whispering into your spirit that the pressure you have been feeling lately is not meant to break you but to position you, not meant to confuse you but to prepare you. And even though some doors closed without explanation and some people walked away without warning and some prayers seemed delayed without reason, heaven has been working behind the scenes in ways your natural eyes could never see, because sometimes God will allow the ground beneath your comfort to shift so the path beneath your destiny can appear, and what you thought was rejection was actually protection. What you thought was delay was actually divine alignment, and what you thought was silence was actually strategy forming in the unseen realm for your breakthrough moment that is closer than you think right now. There were nights when you questioned whether anything was changing at all, nights when you replayed your struggles in your mind wondering if your faith was strong enough or if your timing was already missed. But God says those silent nights were not empty nights, because every tear you released became a seed in the soil of your future miracle, and every time you chose not to quit even when quitting felt easier, you stepped one step closer toward a door that no human hand will be able to close once it opens in your life. What is happening around you at this very moment may look slow and uncertain on the surface, but beneath the surface heaven is rearranging people, shifting circumstances, removing hidden obstacles, and aligning opportunities that are preparing to meet you exactly where your obedience has brought you. And the reason you feel a strange mixture of exhaustion and expectation at the same time is because your spirit can sense that something is changing before your eyes can see it, something is moving before your hands can touch it, something is opening before your mind can fully understand it. God is saying, do not mistake this season of stretching as a season of losing, because stretching always happens before expansion and expansion always happens before arrival, and the truth is that the strength you built in private battles is about to support public victories that people around you never expected to see from your life, and those who misunderstood your silence will soon understand your elevation. And those who doubted your endurance will soon witness your transformation in ways that cannot be explained by coincidence but only by divine timing. Sparkles. There were moments when you almost walked away from the very thing God was preparing to bless because the waiting felt too long and the uncertainty felt too heavy. But heaven held you steady even when your emotions felt unstable, and heaven kept your path protected even when your direction felt unclear. And now you are standing closer than ever before to a breakthrough that has your name written on it long before your struggle even began. God wants you to understand that the resistance you felt recently was not a sign to stop but a sign that something valuable was ahead, because resistance always increases near purpose and confusion always increases near clarity and pressure always increases near promotion. And the reason you survived what others thought would stop you is because your story was never meant to end in that valley but was always meant to rise into a testimony that would strengthen someone else who is walking through the same darkness you once faced. Even now, while you are listening to this message, something is shifting in your favor in ways you cannot measure yet. Conversations are happening you cannot hear yet, opportunities are forming you cannot see yet, and doors are unlocking you cannot reach yet, but they are already prepared for the exact moment. God knows you are ready to walk through them without fear, without doubt, and without needing permission from anyone except Him. So do not allow discouragement to steal your expectation now, because this is the moment where many people turn back even though they are standing only steps away from their miracle, and God is saying, you did not come this far just to stop now, you did not survive this much just to settle now. And you did not believe this long just to doubt now, because what is ahead of you is not random favor but intentional blessing designed specifically for the person you have become through every silent battle you fought and every faithful step you took when nobody else was watching.